Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Depot Dive. We're going to dive into three of the biggest Steelers-related topics of the week. I'm Ross McCorkle, and above me here on the screen, as always, is my co-host, Joe Clark. And Joe, you're a big sports junkie. You watch just about every sport under the sun, and this is the best time of year for that. Do you have time to do anything else? We got hockey starting, basketball starting, obviously playoff baseball. We're almost halfway through the NFL season. Is this a good time of year for you?
I think it's a fantastic time of year. We got the World Series starting up tomorrow. NBA started on Tuesday. I actually hit the Celtics home opener last night with my girlfriend, who's a Sixers fan, so she had a much better night than I did. But uh, but it was still a good time. I have a little bit of time for other activities. I'm going to a 10:30 showing of the new Bruce Springsteen movie tonight, so I can
Okay.
squeeze some things in here and there.
You'll be
But yeah, no, it's been a good time of year.
Don't check your scores on the phone too much in the movie, but I imagine you will some at least. All right, well, we're going to dive into Steelers stuff. Obviously, the first topic is going to be discussing the disaster that took place on Thursday night football against the Bengals. It seemed almost preordained. You hear the stats about Mike Tomlin being, what was it, 2-9? Was it 2-9 entering Thursday night football against AFC opponents on the road on Thursday night football in the short week? You see some of the Joe Flacco stuff about Mike Tomlin complaining about Flacco being traded from the Browns to the Bengals. It just all kind of seemed like, oh man, this is going to be one of those weeks. And lo and behold, they did end up losing 33-31. Joe, where do you want to start? I feel like the defense is kind of the hot button here.
Yeah, I think the defense kind of let their gas off the pedal. Pittsburgh got off to an early 10-0 lead, and the defense just started playing run defense the same way they did in weeks 1 and 2. They're getting out of their gaps. They weren't tackling at all. And then that just opened everything up for Cincinnati, and they looked unbeatable on offense. So the defense was a major, major concern. I mean, Jalen Ramsey didn't look good in the secondary. Darius Slay looked like burnt toast, especially on that deep ball to Yoshivas. Joey Porter Jr. had too many penalties. There wasn't enough pressure. I mean, Flacco was getting the ball out quick, but there was still capacity to get some pressure there, and the Steelers just didn't get enough. I think a lot of that goes because the secondary was just letting guys get open pretty much off rip. And yeah, I mean, the run defense 142 on the ground against the Bengals team coming in. That was far and away the worst run defense in the league. It was not a very good look and a good performance, and does not really make you feel any better about this team being able to, stop the run going forward. If the Bengals are putting up 142 against them, that's a little bit concerning for sure.
Yeah, and Terrell Austin today, I thought, said some interesting things. I mean, Mike Tomlin said it right after the game that they were in an, I think he called it an unsteady environment after some of those long runs by Chase Brown. I forget exactly how long those were. His longest of the day. How long did that end up being?
I think it was
37.
37. Yeah, he had a 27 and he broke off a 37 in the second quarter.
They talked about that creating an unsteady environment for the defense, and I thought it was really telling today when Terrell Austin said that he basically was calling the game differently after those runs happened. And I don't know. I think they've pointed to the same couple of plays so much. The Chase Brown run, both of his runs, and then the Yosavash deep pass over Slay there. I think they've pointed to those like more than they probably should, and I get it. I get like you try to do something different. It's not like the Steelers didn't try to adjust on defense. They tried just about everything to limit Higgins and Jamar Chase, but the times when they maybe tried something different and ended up with Darius Slay one-on-one against Yoshavash, they got burned, and I think they were kind of calling the game scared from that point forward, and I just don't know if that's a equal and like a worthy reaction. Just, if occasionally you're going to let up some big plays. It's the NFL. Not everything's going to go according to plan. Should 3 plays really derail your entire defensive game plan of trying to limit Chase and maybe doubling him and just, I mean, there are plays where Chase was wide open. It's not like the game plan was to allow him to have 8 yards of cushion at times.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they prop the Bengals up to be this just like immaculate, unbeatable offensive team. I mean, earlier in the week it was like, oh, we made all these moves so we could beat the Bengals. And then the Bengals have a little bit of success, and Terrell also just changes his mindset on how to call the game. And they let the guys that shouldn't be beating them and T. Higgins, Jamar Chase beat them. It just I really don't get it. I mean, I think the defensive play calling has been, I mean, for a while now, it's been unimaginative and just kind of plain and boring. I mean, they tried some different things, but I like the way you put it though. They called that game scared, and they deservedly got beat for it.
And another interesting thing from Terrell Austin today, and I know Alex Kozora on our site has written about this a couple of times now, is about the dime defense. And, the Steelers haven't really put 6 defensive backs on the field much at all this year. At one point, they hadn't a single time. That's kind of a staple of third and long defense. And I don't think it's any coincidence that the Steelers' third and long defense has been one of their biggest issues on defense this year. I mean, it's kind of like a running joke. I'd rather them be in like a 3rd and 4 than 3rd and 12, because if it's 3rd and 12, the other team's going to convert or at least get 11 yards to set up a 4th and 1 where they then convert the next play. I thought it was interesting that Terrell Austin explained that and basically said, we have Peyton Wilson, so that's why we're not... I see you shaking your head. They seem to love Peyton Wilson, and I think that there's a lot of promise. He's still young. I think he is a good, coverage linebacker to an extent, but I feel like at this point the stats are not favorable for some of these situations where it wasn't really a big issue for them in years past. I don't know if you have anything to add there, Joe. I just found that interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like every single time there's a moderately big game up the middle on the pass and Peyton Wilson's on the field, he's like looking around at like Patrick Queen. They're both looking at each other and shaking their head. It's like Peyton Wilson is an athletic freak. I think he's a good football player and he's the capacity to grow, but clearly he's not there right now with the communication and figuring it out, because it just seems like every single time. I mean, we saw it like 3 times against the Patriots. That game sticks out to me. Like it's not working out. Like, yes, he does have the ability to cover, guys that need him to cover. He can cover tight ends. But when the communication continues to fail when he's a guy that's on the field, then I mean, at some point you got to find the common denominator there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he already kind of he was supposed to be they hyped him up as this every down backer, and then they kind of have now put him in a rotation with Cole Holcomb because he wasn't playing that well at the beginning of the year, especially against the run. And so they already stripped some of his responsibilities. And I just feel like they're hanging on to, wow, Peyton Wilson's going to be an impact player for us. And I think he can be in like limited situations. And I just think they put maybe too much on his plate too soon. And I mean, he called himself one of the best coverage linebackers in the world prior to the season. I don't think I mean, I think he has the ability to become that with his athleticism, but I don't think that has bared itself out so far this year. So an interesting answer there from Terrell Austin. Hopefully they use more dime defense. I mean, they talked up their secondary before the season began. Obviously the secondary also hasn't performed that well, but I mean, what? Your dime defense, it means you're getting Eccles, Ramsey, Porter, Slay, probably Elliott and, Thornhill or Clark. I mean, you have a big group of DBs that you can. I didn't even mention Jabril Peppers either. They have a big group of defensive backs that they can use in those situations. It doesn't have to be every play. It's not going to fix everything, but they need to get it involved. It didn't sound like Terrell Austin was super keen on doing that just by his response, because then he went on to say, I don't have it pulled up here, but he basically was like, Peyton Wilson's just the best Steeler. He tries hard. He loves football. It just really seemed like he was trying to take a defensive posture on defending why they aren't doing dime and why they're doing nickel. And so I didn't get the sense that they're going to, change their ways there. I don't know how many more beatings it's going to, they're going to need to take before they do change that. But I don't know if I have anything else to add in that regard. Let's move over to the offensive side of the ball. I mean, for every bit that this defense looked bad, I think the offense looked really good. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, the 2 interceptions aside, one of them not really his fault. He had 4 touchdowns. This is another 4-touchdown game for Rodgers, the second already of the season. I mean, this guy's on pace to break the Steelers' single-season touchdown record with, I think he's on pace for 39.7 right now, so more or less 40 touchdowns. Jaylen Warren breaking out, 127 yards on the ground. Another, what did I have here? 31 through the air. So that's 158 yards total for Jaylen Warren. No touchdowns, but man, he's every time he touches the ball, he's making guys miss. He's breaking tackles. He's falling forward. He's exactly what they needed at running back and making Omar Khan look like a genius for doing that 2-year extension. Where else do you want to go on the offense here?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that stood out, and now granted it was against a Cincinnati defense that I could have gotten just as much pressure probably on the night if I was on that defense that they did. But I think JT O'Sullivan, who's like he runs the QB school, he kind of said it looked like vintage Aaron Rodgers, the way he was moving around, holding on to the ball and being able to like find a guy open, making, very high level throws. I mean, he's gotten the ball out so quick all season. And against the Bengals, he had all day to throw, and he showcased, a decent amount of mobility, being able to move and just kind of wait and find guys open. I mean, we saw it on the Johnny Smith touchdown. We saw it in the Fryermuth throw. He, made a nice play to get away from the little bit of pressure that was there, and in coverage bust got Fryermuth wide open. So I think the mobility we're seeing from Rodgers is one of the more positive takeaways. Just he's not a complete statue in the pocket. I mean, he took a lot of hits earlier in the season, and he even admitted that he didn't feel like himself earlier in the season. He's feeling better now, but um, I think that was one thing that kind of really stood out from watching that game back. And then, I mean, obviously Jaylen Warren, that was exactly what you want to see from your starting running back. He was breaking off chunk runs. He had a 37-yard run. I think it was funny that the Steelers were after Chase Brown broke off his 27-yard run, the Steelers were one of like four teams that didn't have a 20-yard run, and then Jaylen Warren was breaking off long runs left and right. So that was, good game from him. You really want to see that continue. And if the Steelers can actually stop the run and establish the run, then that will be a good thing going forward. But we'll see if that can happen.
Yeah, and I think we'd be remiss not to mention the offensive line. I think people have just kind of assumed that the offensive line was going to be an issue. And I mean, it started the season that way. They looked horrible for the first couple of games. And it's been not perfect ever since. But, I mean, for all the talk leading into the season about, oh man, is this offensive line going to be able to keep Aaron Rodgers upright? And are they going to be able to keep, support a running game that can protect Rodgers from having to throw the ball 50 times a game? And I mean, this was like, I don't know if it feels like a long time ago now, but that was dominating the discussion leading up to the season. That was probably the biggest topic of conversation when it came to this offense, was like, oh, is that offensive line going to get him injured in like the, first week, second week? Aaron Rodgers has only been sacked 2 times over the last 4 games. It started out with 7 sacks in the first 2. It's been 2 over the last 4. So great improvement there. And yes, he gets rid of the ball quickly in general, although he didn't against the Bengals. And, they've done some of this jumbo stuff, so they have extra guys kind of help him block. And so some of it's scheme. It's not all improvements on the offensive line, but like the sack improvements, one thing. I think it was, if you don't trust sack numbers, because sometimes, near sacks happen and stuff, and pressure can be more of an indicator. Okay, fine. They had 22 pressures allowed over the first 2 weeks, and since then it's been 25 over the last 4. So, I mean, they've improved across the board in pass protection. If you want to look at the run game too, I mean, they were averaging 63 yards per game on the ground over the first 2. I think the first 3 games in that split, 63 per game. Ever since then, they've doubled that exactly with 126 per game over the last 3. And so across the board, the offensive line has been showing progress. I don't think that we've talked enough about guys like Mason McCormick, Troy Fautanu. Even Broderick Jones has started to, look a little bit better, gaining confidence, doing some things that he hadn't been doing in the past. So I just wanted to make sure that we plug the offensive line here, because I do think they deserve a lot of credit. And, I don't think it's crazy to think that the unit that was the biggest worry entering the season could exit the season as an actual strength of the team. It's at least trending that way right now.
Yeah, I really like what I've seen over these last few weeks. It's Yeah, I do think by the end of the season we're gonna be talking about the offensive line as a unit that's not only a strength this year, but a unit that, it's a young group outside of Isaac Seumalo, but a group that I think can continue to ascend and be a strength going forward.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that we're to the point where it's like, all right, yep, pick up the 5th year option for Broderick Jones. That's a whole other conversation. He has to prove it over the course of the rest of the season, and I think he's moving in the right direction, but still a ways off in general. But yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers joked that the only time he was tackled last game was when Broderick Jones brought him to the ground, and that's probably a pretty good sign for everybody involved. Anything else from the offense? Oh, Pat Freiermuth. I wanted to have this conversation just because Ben Roethlisberger brought it up, and I think I kind of like half said it. I don't know if I fully even meant it right when it happened, but when Pat Freiermuth scored his long touchdown of 68 yards. There was I think it was 2 minutes and 21 seconds left in the game when he scored, or roughly about that. So it was on the wrong side of the 2-minute warning. The Bengals had 2 timeouts. The Steelers needed the touchdown to take the lead because at the time it was, his touchdown made it 31-30. And so Ben Roethlisberger wanted Pat Freiermuth to do what T. Higgins ultimately did the next drive, which was not score the touchdown, not give the ball back to the other team, and, basically try to finish the game out with the offense on the field. There was more of a debate in the comment section of that article than I thought there would have been. I think you just have to take the touchdown there. I don't know if you have a different point of view.
I completely agree. I mean, who knows what can happen if he goes down? You could have, a botched snap. You could have a fumble. There's so many outcomes where you end up with 0 points on the board and you're down 6 points at that point. You need a touchdown. And you have the highest paid defense in the league. You have a defense that, should be a lot better than they were on Thursday. You trust them to go and make a stop at the end of the game. I mean, when you need a touchdown, you have to take the touchdown. You're leaving it up to chance at that point. Even if it goes down to like the 2-yard line. We saw the Marshawn Lynch Super Bowl, whatever. I mean, that's a extreme example there. But crazy fluky things can happen. So you got to take the touchdown when it's presented to you and you need it.
Yeah, and I like the Steelers have one of the best red zone offenses this year. I think it's like 3rd or 4th or something. They've been very good at converting for touchdowns. However, earlier in the game, they did briefly enter the red zone before I think it was a Mason McCormick false start, backed them up out of the red zone. They had to settle for a field goal that drive, and so there was already one example of them not finishing a red zone drive in the end zone. There's no guarantee there, and yeah, if they only needed a field goal to win, then yeah, maybe you do start to talk about that instead. But they needed a touchdown, and so that's why it was an obvious decision for Higgins. Still, you have to give him credit for making it in the heat of the moment like that, but for them, that was a very obvious situation. Freiermuth, not so much. I think you have to take the touchdown there. But do you think Freiermuth is here to stay? He's now the number 2 receiver on the team in terms of yards, and some of that's because Calvin Austin's been hurt. But Freiermuth is where a lot of people thought he would be before the start of the season. He's finally kind of in that spot.
Yeah, he's historically insanely good against the Bengals, but he did exactly what the Steelers needed him to do. On the first touchdown too, he found a gap in the end zone. Like he's finding space to get open, and I think if he can continue to do that, I think he proved to Aaron Rodgers that he can be a reliable target. So he's got to just keep being his own beater. He's got to just keep being a guy that can find those holes, find those seams in the middle of the defense. And yeah, I do think he's gonna continue to see, maybe 3 to 4 catches a game, somewhere around that range, maybe a little bit more where he was at least at like the very start of the season. I think the 0 catch games, the 1 catch games aren't going to be a continual thing going forward. Mike Tomlin said last week his time will come. Obviously his time came last week. I don't think we're going to be getting 100+ yards and 2 touchdowns from Pat Freiermuth every week, but I think he's going to continue to be a, consistent, pretty reliable part of this offense.
Along that same line, Tomlin did say, he'd been getting asked about Freiermuth a bunch, and people probably aren't going to ask about Freiermuth now after that game. He kind of drew a parallel to that with the Nick Herbig situation, because Herbig only played, you wrote it down here, what was it, 29 defensive snaps compared to, I think Highsmith played like 50 in that neighborhood. So Ended up playing way less than anticipated. Some of that's because, the Steelers didn't feel like they could put the 3 outside linebacker package on the field, and maybe just game circumstance. Mike Tomlin explained it away as game circumstance. Mike Tomlin's answer, without saying it, kind of read to me like, okay, yeah, I didn't even realize that he played that little. That's probably going to change next week. So I think we can probably anticipate seeing a lot more Herbig regardless of game circumstance, because that guy's just, we've been talking about it just about every episode. He's been unstoppable. You can't keep him off the field. He's, arguably their best pass rusher at the moment. So, all right. I think that puts a bow on the Bengals game. Hopefully, better times ahead. We're going to preview the Packers here in a minute, but we wanted to touch on the trade deadline with that coming up in less than 2 weeks now. That's coming up on, what is it, the 4th? So,
Yep.
Yeah, like just under 2 weeks at this point on Tuesday there. A lot of, basically every insider at this point has linked the Steelers to a receiver. You had Fowler bring it up. You had Rappaport. You had Schefter. I mean, basically every insider has said along the lines of the Steelers are poking around, surveying the wide receiver market. I think Rappaport got a little more specific on the type of receiver they're looking for. Joe, what did he say there?
Yeah, he said in the trade deadline look ahead preview on Saturday, said the Steelers are looking for a receiver with speed, and that kind of didn't make a whole lot of sense with Calvin Austin now looking like he's coming back. You have Roman Wilson, who I think most would classify as a speed receiver. You have Scotty Miller, who I think most would classify as a speed receiver. So like, were you adding to that mix? I mean, Bill Barnwell linked them to Rashid Shaheed in like a mock trade scenario. I think right before he got on, Jordan Schultz said teams are monitoring Rashid Shaheed, but Nick Underhill, who's the most, I think, probably the most trusted Saints insider, said a team that trades for Shaheed would probably have to extend him. I don't really see the Steelers trading and then extend. I mean, obviously, certainly not in season. They're not breaking their president for Rashid Shaheed. I mean,
No?
that's the only guy, like, if you're looking at a pure speed receiver that like kind of stands out because he can, I mean, he can really stretch the field. He can play on the outside. Like I wouldn't be opposed to that, but like who knows what the cost is going to be. I think one name that I think is kind of interesting out there, and I know he already got traded this offseason, but the Steelers had an interest in Christian Kirk last year. He hasn't done a whole lot with Houston. He's been banged up most of the year. But if he's a guy that they want to just like throw a late round pick at and take a flyer, I mean, they were reportedly in the process of working out a trade with the Jaguars last year before he broke his collarbone. So that's the type of receiver I'd probably expect them to target. I mean, Jacoby Myers wants out. I don't think, I mean, as we've talked about, the Steelers are holding on to their 2026 draft picks like they're the gems that got stolen from the Louvre earlier this week. So I don't think they're trading, any of, a third, maybe not even a fourth for a guy like Shaheed or Jacoby Myers. I think if you can trade a sixth or a seventh or, a sixth for a receiver and a seventh, like a Mike Williams type of deal, that feels a lot more likely to me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The draft pick narrative has been, we've been talking about it for weeks now about are they going to trade for one of these guys? My thinking has shifted a little bit, and mostly because of Aaron Rodgers and how well he's doing. Because at this point, you really have to wonder is this really going to be his last season? Yeah, he said this is probably going to be his last season way back in June before he, like right when he signed with the team. He confirmed that, this is going to be most likely his last season. He's kind of backtracked every time he's been asked since then, where it's kind of less and less certain. And then you had the moment on Cam Hayward's podcast where Metcalf kind of joked that, like, I got him as a maybe for next year, and, we're going to run it back or whatever. It's just kind of trended that way. And then you see Rodgers now having 2 4-touchdown games. Like we said, he might break the Steelers single season touchdown record. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, you saw him throw that 70-yard Hail Mary. It didn't connect, but it got to the end zone. That doesn't look like a guy who's getting chased out of the league by Father Time to me. So Jeremy Fowler had an interesting kind of report on this, basically saying that the Steelers, people within the building, it's a resounding yes if you ask them if they want Rodgers back next year. And he even said, quote, they might rethink their plans at 2026 quarterback. at the quarterback position in 2026. And so it's starting to feel like Rodgers is coming back. My whole thing with trading stuff for a receiver or trading, investing any more money in a receiver is, do you really do that if you don't know who's going to be throwing him the ball beyond this season? Well, now they might have more of an answer to that question, and it might be worth, if you really want to make a run with Rodgers, not only this year but next year, yeah, you probably do want to give him one more decent weapon. And so I'm now kind of back on the train of like, would they make a splashy-ish, splash kind of trade? I don't know if that's Myers. I mean, Fowler's also listed Waddle. I don't think that's happening. Chris Olave's out there. I mean, there's guys out there that they could make a splash, and then there's guys that probably aren't even being mentioned that are dark horses that could be traded as well. So that's my line of thinking over the last couple of days here.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't rule it out. I would like if they added a better receiver, because I think that really gives them a chance to, especially if their defense is playing the way it has, it gives them a chance to really still compete and win these games when they're allowing, 25 plus points. I mean, they've allowed 30 points in 2 games and also put up 30 points, and adding another, talented Jacoby Myers, Chris Olave type receiver would really elevate this offensive ceiling and make them, I think, maybe one of the best offenses in the league, given the way they've played so far. So, I mean, I would certainly be in favor of it. I'm just, I'm a little less optimistic that that's something that they're going to look to do.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a team that if the defense was holding up their end of the bargain, you're probably, I mean, how many teams are better than the Steelers if the defense lived up to expectations? So, yeah, I think that's something that the Steelers have to consider, especially if DK gets hurt, you're already in trouble. It's probably not going to be easy to overcome that, but it's if you don't trade for somebody, it's going to be very difficult because they have basically nobody else outside of Calvin Austin that they trust at the moment. So, all right, we're going to move on to previewing the Packers game. Aaron Rodgers, his first time playing against his former team. I think he would he would become the 6th or the 5th to beat all 32 NFL teams if he beats the Packers. Do you know that stat off the top of your head? I know it's an
I
exclusive
think
club.
what I've seen, yes.
Okay, so he has a chance to beat the Packers. He claims it's not a revenge game. He says there's no animosity there. I mean, yeah, the last year ended weird, but no animosity, not a revenge game. It's taking place in Pittsburgh, so that's a little different. He's barely going to recognize them because they're wearing whiteout jerseys while the Steelers are wearing their 1933 throwbacks with the yellow helmets. To avoid that yellow helmet clash, the Packers went ahead and swapped out to white helmets instead, which is good because I think that would have been kind of a disaster. Where do you want to start here? I think there's some injury stuff, or if you want to preview some matchups, wherever you want to start.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Green Bay isn't Pittsburgh. They haven't won in Pittsburgh since 1970, so that does make an interesting twist for this matchup. But as far as injuries, the Steelers are probably going to get Calvin Austin, the third back. He was a full participant in practice yesterday, but notably Zach Frazier was limited with a calf injury, so that's kind of something to monitor. Malik Harrison. I think Mike Tomlin just kind of said he's working his way back. There wasn't any like real sense of optimism he'll be activated this week, but I think I mean, doors open for it. His 21-day window was open last week, so he could be back and maybe give him a lift on special teams or against the run.
Did he finally say
Well,
something about Trice?
he did. He said Trice is going to return to practice soon. I think was or he's close to return to practice, something like that. So hopefully, maybe next week or the week after, we'll get news that his window's opening up. Because the Steelers certainly need all the depth and help they can get in the secondary, because Darius Slay is guaranteed to leave a game for 8 plays with an injury, and then Joey Porter Jr. will probably go down for 3 plays, and then we're playing James Pierre for 11, 12, 13 snaps a game. But all right, mini rant over. Will Howard's 21-day window opened up. He probably won't be activated, I would assume, until close to the end of that window. The Steelers have been fine rolling with 2 quarterbacks. When he does, he's probably going to be their emergency third. As for the Packers, Lucas Van Ness, he's a guy that Tomlin mentioned in his press conference as a part of their edge rush trio. He missed week 7 against the Cardinals. He did not practice yesterday. Kicker Brandon McManus, I think he's supposed to be out this week. Also did not practice yesterday, nor did wide receiver Dontavian Wicks. It's a little bit notable given the fact that the Packers have a plethora of receiver options. So it'll be interesting to see if Wicks will be able to go against the Steelers and give them somebody else to go with, Romeo Dobbs and um, Matthew Golden and Christian Watson. I think is probably going to be back this week. So definitely, and I mean Tucker Kraft at tight end too. This is
Yeah.
a team that has weapons galore all over the field.
Yeah, I think the injury stuff. I mean, because the Steelers, when they sent Miles Killebrew to IR, they haven't. There's still an open roster spot at the moment, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they brought in that George Odom, that All-Pro special teamer, for a visit. Did not sign him, and you would think they would have by now. Uh, so at
He
this
visited
point,
somewhere else yesterday too, so I don't think there's anything imminent coming there.
yeah. So I mean, at this point, I think Jabril Peppers was playing personal protector. They seemed to, I mean, their special teams unit looked fine, I think, overall. It wasn't there weren't like major disasters there against the Bengals. So maybe you do see Howard. I mean, there's that open spot, and I really hope they don't wait 21 days to fill the open spot like they did last time. They need to have a full roster there. So I think there's also open spot on the practice squad right now, so they've got some roster shuffling coming in the upcoming days here. Do you buy the whole no revenge game thing? I mean, everyone wants to paint Rodgers as this petty, media obsessed, bad teammate. Like, I think there's a lot of false kind of narratives about Rodgers. Some of it might be deserved, the Netflix stuff, whatever you want to say about all that, and his off-field stuff, but there seems to be some doubt in the media over the last couple days since he said it's not a revenge game.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think he wants to beat them. I mean, not only so he can add his name to the list of quarterbacks that have beaten every single team, but I mean, I'm sure there was a little bit of animosity. There's still maybe a little bit of lingering stuff the way things ended. I think Albert Breer had something the other day that there's still some people in the building that Rodgers definitely would like to beat. Um, So I mean, he said the same thing against the Jets. It had a week one that it's just another game, and then after he said, it's always nice to beat the Jets. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if we get another quip like that from him if they end up winning on Sunday. So yeah, I mean, he's not going to come out and say like, oh, I really hate this Packers team. I want to come out. So I think there's a little bit in him that wants to get some revenge after they refused to draft him a first round receiver and drafted Jordan Love, and then this year they go out and draft Jordan Love a first round receiver too. I'm sure that's in the back of his head somewhere.
Yeah, I agree there. Um, Micah Parsons is going to be the big story of this week, and we've talked about the offensive line and how good they've looked. They haven't allowed very many sacks lately. Is that going to change? Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary.
I mean, I have a hard time seeing Micah Parsons exiting this game without getting at least one sack. He's the watch. I watched the large majority of that Cardinals game live last week, and I went back and watched some of it on tape, and he was an absolute game wrecker. I mean, Jonah Williams was so outmatched. So I think I mean I hope he doesn't wreck the game the same way he did last week, but I do think Micah Parsons is probably gonna find a way to get his on Sunday in some at least one sack.
Another matchup, speaking of Peyton Wilson earlier, and you just talked about Tucker Kraft. He's been excellent for them at tight end. Uh, is Peyton Wilson going to be the big matchup there? Probably him, maybe some Deshaun Elliott and some other people as well. But yeah, I think shutting down Tucker Kraft seems to be one of the keys to shutting down this Packers offense. The Steelers have been okay against tight ends at times this season, but historically kind of struggle against tight ends a little bit. So Tucker Kraft is one that has me a little worried. Any other matchups to note here?
Yeah, I mean, Matthew Golden hasn't gotten going yet. He's a speed threat. I'm curious to see how the Steelers will cover him when he's on the field, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers at least try to deep ball to him, once or twice in this game, given the fact that the Steelers struggled to defend the deep ball against Cincinnati, especially on that play to Yoshivas. So I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to look to Golden deep here once to see if they can get a favorable matchup. But that's just kind of I don't know how much of that's going to be a – matchup thing, but I think they might try to dial something up on Sunday.
Yeah, who is like this? The Steelers don't really have that like burner in the secondary. I mean, Porter's athletic enough, but like Ramsey is getting older. Slay obviously is his quick days are behind him. Uh, Eccles maybe has some speed to him. Actually Eccles played pretty well. Maybe the best game of any of the corners. Hopefully he gets a little bit more playing time moving forward. Elliott's not really a speed guy. Thornhill, I think he's fast enough. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like running step for step with somebody like Golden, that might be a challenge. So I agree. We could see that become an issue on Sunday. The Steelers have been known to produce breakout games for some of their opponents in the past. So all right, we're going to move into a listener question. If you want to have your question answered, it's 412-254-3145. It's at the bottom of the screen if you're watching on YouTube. It's also in the show notes if I spoke a little too fast there. Leave us a question with your name, where you're from, and a brief question for a chance to have it answered on a future episode. This one is from regular Brett in San Angelo.
Hello, Depot Dive. This is Brett from San Angelo, and my question for you is what your thoughts about the actual play of Spencer Anderson. Obviously, he's getting a lot of talk about him playing, but not a lot about how he's looked in terms of, kind of technique and et cetera, in that essentially eligible role. And I guess the next question after that is, they've talked about potentially moving Washington to tackle. Should they be talking about moving Spencer Anderson to tight end? And then how do you feel about him for starting at either guard or as a swing tackle next year, based on what you've seen so far? Thank you very much. I'll shut up and listen to the answer.
All right, question about Spencer Anderson. I think just off the top, like this is a guy who initially played tackle coming in, moved to guard, and then I think he was asked like, "Oh, are you going to be more of a tackle? Like, are you going to be kind of guard and tackle this year?" And I think he said like literally the quote was, "My tackle days are behind me. I'm a guard now," and now he's playing tight end eligible, tackle eligible as an extra blocker, and so. I think his versatility is good. I think overall, the benefit of having Spencer Anderson in there, along with, Darnell Washington, is just the fact that you have two extra big bodies. Spencer Anderson has been fine. It's not like he's been, if he was one of their best offensive linemen, then they'd be starting him on the, front five there. I think against the run, he's been fine. He's a very athletic guy. He's, strong. He can move. So against the run, it's been solid. I think against the Browns in particular, Rodgers wasn't sacked, but Anderson had a tough time. He had some plays that weren't great against the Browns. I think it was a little better against the Bengals. I think he had a penalty there against the Browns as well, so he gets dinged for that. But yeah, overall, it's kind of maybe slightly better than average he's been overall, technique-wise, and just, I think probably a little bit better against the run than he is against the pass at this point in time. Joe, I don't know if you have anything to add. And there's more to his question about whether or not they should make Anderson a tight end in the future.
Yeah, I think I don't know if moving him to tight end is going to be a viable outcome going forward, but like I agree with what you said. I don't think I would be super comfortable entering next year, with him penciled in as a starting guard. Isaac Samuel is a free agent. I think they should at least bring in some competition there. But yeah, I mean he's done his job fairly well. Been solid against the run. So yeah, I mean I've nothing to add to what you said about all that.
What I will say is him getting all these reps is good because one, he had some starting reps last year when Sam Aller was hurt before Mason McCormick entered the lineup. And so if you do need to start him at the beginning of next season while, say, maybe a rookie is developing behind him or whatever it might be, he at least is going to be, experienced enough to, if you have Aaron Rodgers back there, you're not going to get him killed. So that's positive. But yeah, I think, he's probably going to stay as a guard by trade and, I guess playing some of this tackle eligible stuff as well. In terms of your Darnell Washington question, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit. I think he's proved he's a tight end. He has, he had a touchdown last game. He has that 2-point conversion. He's now, I think against the Browns, he had, what was it? 5 receptions. He had a pretty good number of receptions, like 60 yards. And so this is a guy that has proved that he can run routes and stuff. Mike Tomlin said it best. Maybe he'll grow old at the tackle position, but I don't think there's any imminent move there. Brett, thank you for the question. I actually might do, especially if the Steelers run more Spencer Anderson packages this upcoming game against the Packers, I might go ahead and just do a film room on his first. When did they start using that? Was it week 4?
Week 4.
So 4, 6, 7. So there'll be 4 games worth of Spencer Anderson. That's about a game's worth of snaps for me to watch. So how about this? I'll promise you a Spencer Anderson film room if they use him extensively against the Packers this week. All right, that is all for this episode. Again, if you want to have a question answered, 412-254-3145. I am Ross. That is Joe, and we will catch you guys next time.